And we're live. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Inside.net. Today, I'm really excited because we're going to get to talk about a technology that I'm personally a fan of, but I kind of feel like we don't talk about enough of inside a .NET community. And that's going to be OData. Now, before we do that, why don't we just go around and introduce everyone? I'm joined today by my co-host, Rodney. Want to say hi, Rodney?
Hi, Rodney.
Hi, Rodney.
and then coming over from the west coast of the United States, we have Alon.
Hi, guys.
Hey. And then our guest today going to be my dear friend Hassan, also from the west coast, Pacific Northwest, right? I guess we can say that. There we go. So Hassan, for people that don't know what OData is, why don't we kind of start with the beginning, right? Like what is it? What does it do? Why should people care about this thing?
Absolutely. So, first of all, thank you all for giving me the opportunity to just, kind of share a little bit about OData. You're all awesome, and I appreciate the opportunity. But, kind of high level, what is OData? If you really want to, you have a normal API that gives you a list of, details, a list of student names, and you want, let's say you have a customer or a need to kind of build a capability that allows you to kind of search through these students based on certain, criteria or filters. You want to kind of shape the data. You want to only get the name and the date of birth, but you don't want the other 20 properties that are in your model. What OData does is that supercharges your APIs, with just 4 lines of code. 4 lines of code supercharge every API you have available and gives you tremendous amount of capabilities to filter, shape, map the data, do even computation calculations in real time, all on the server, so your client can just get the data and just display it easily and seamlessly.
One of the things that I liked about OData when I first saw it was, it was like the package that was doing all the things that I was already doing, but now I don't have to maintain it, right? And I love that. I love deleting code and letting someone else deal with it, right? So I think about things like paging. Paging's not a necessarily difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
Do I want to do it? That's debatable, right? It's debatable.
It doesn't make your app any different than any other app. That should be something you just hand over to something else to take care of.
Right. And I also think paging means different things depending on how you want to write that query or the thing that you're trying to return, right?
Right.
I also think about shaping the response. So, let's say I have a resource and I have a list of customers or a list of products, and they have 30 properties per product. I'm going to make a request and say, hey, give me the first 10, right? So then now that's that's 300 properties, right? That's 30 times 10. That's a lot of properties. I don't necessarily need all of those. Maybe I just want the ID, or I just want the name. I want the name and the product code or something like that for display purposes. So that means that those 28 extra properties per resource is just it's just wasted thing coming over to space.
Yep. Just traffic over the network that you don't need.
So I used to write reflection code to go in and remove and do some finagling of the response or finagling of the object. So now when I return the response, I only get 2 things. And again, that's fine, and we could do that. But do I want to maintain that? And then now I'm having to do that for every type of object that I don't want to, that
a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
So again, I love deleting code and I love not maintaining stuff if I don't have to, because I'm a lazy developer. So for me, OData was really good for that purpose. I'm kind of curious though, because I know a lot of folks don't know about it as much as I think they should. How old is this thing? How long has it been around? You know what I mean? Where did it come from? Could you give us maybe a quick history lesson to the origins of the thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, about, 10 years ago, probably around 10 years ago, that was at the beginning of REST, right? Everyone was talking about APIs. We don't want SOAP anymore. We don't want WCF anymore. We want something that's agnostic. I don't want to, tightly integrate with a client and all that. I want a protocol that allows, a Java system to talk to a C# based system, to talk to a Node or Python shaped system. So, REST was born, right? And, a lot of companies, big enterprises, started to kind of think about a way to kind of standardize that protocol. So they started kind of talking about REST APIs, and here's the codes that we can for 400 and 500s and 300s and all that. They agreed on all that, and then Microsoft came in and they said, okay, we need a way, a standardized protocol for everybody to be able to query and shape that data. So they proposed a protocol called OData, or open data. OData is basically, is a protocol that allows people to basically write link in a RESTful language. So when you write a link expression, you say, where student ID equal, you're doing that, but through an API endpoint, right? And because it's not specific to C#, it's standardized, so that had to be really, really detached and completely agnostic from any particular platform. Suppose the protocol, a lot of companies said, yeah, good, let's go do it. Oracle jumped in. Big organizations like World Health Organizations today use these protocols. It went all over the place, and then now databases start to offer the protocol outside of the box as a capability. Like if you get Cosmos DB today, you can call OData in. You can do that with SharePoint. You can do that on MariaDB. You can do that with so many different platforms today, because it just makes sense. It's a simple protocol, right? That's basically the beginning of it. Just coming out of the need, okay, if we have data, we need to be able to query it. And if we want to query it and we are technology agnostic, we need to agree how we're going to query that data.
So then you think it's fair to say OData is kind of like an extension or a collection of like opinionated practices, so to speak, that kind of sit on top of what we consider to be like HTTP RESTful APIs.
Yep, and they even gave it like a nice kind of marketing statement. It's the best way to rest.
The best way to rest.
So the way I've always looked at OData is like REST is the protocol that gets me the thing, and OData is the way I can shape the thing coming to me, right? So they work lockstep. To Hassan's point, right? We have a protocol to get the data. Now, how do we query it in a similar fashion, right? Because what we don't want is Cecil to go find his way, Rodney to go find his way, and then our company needs to talk and they can't talk, right? Because we haven't found an agreed upon protocol or API surface or whatever you want to call it, right? That gives us that option. So the way I've always used OData is, okay, I've got my REST endpoints and I just want to go grab subsets of data, and it almost becomes like almost like a view over my REST API. Like
okay, I think I'm like connecting the dots. Yeah,
right. Like I can now say, oh, at an endpoint, give me a subset of the table, not the whole table, and it's clearly defined, right?
Exactly.
So OData has always been an amazing thing, and I feel like we just don't talk about it in the .NET space because we have so much amazing tooling in the .NET space. We don't appreciate something as amazing as OData.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So I know when I first started playing around with OData, I know, and this was a long time ago, there was a lot of like pushback from DBAs. There's pushback because they're like, oh, we're not going to let you write ad hoc queries over the wire because now we can't control that, right? Like it's almost like, putting people talked about it as like putting your database on a URL, right? And so, folks were very concerned about that. But from my understanding, like there's mechanisms built into OData to help you manage that, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. You can control, what queries you can execute. You can control, of course, if you're gonna enable querying over the wire, it can constitute a huge security risk. So, some constraints have to be put in place. How much you can get per page, what operations you can execute. Maybe you can do select, but you can't do filter. Maybe you can do filter, but you can't do, calculation and arithmetic calculations. You have full control over that at the controller level and at the API level at the same time.
Nice. So I'm kind of curious now. Recently as in like within the last couple of years, there's been this other technology called GraphQL, right?
Okay, yeah.
And when people give me like the value prop of GraphQL, as a .NET developer, I'm like, but we already have this other thing that does the same thing, right? But I also kind of feel like GraphQL came out of a different community. That came out of that React Native, React Facebook side.
Yep. Yep.
And Facebook did it, so obviously everybody else wants to do it too, right?
Yep.
So, but I'm sure at some point, like, there was like a little bit of a divergence, right? There's things that GraphQL does, and there's things that OData does. But for me, like, the initial premise was the same, right? It was the fact that I want to be able to kind of control the data that's going over the wire, right? So I could be efficient for my desktop clients, my mobile clients, my bandwidth usage, all these types of things. Because again, we don't necessarily need everything whenever we make requests, right? Like, what for you? Like, how do you think about that in your head? Like, how do you compare the two, and kind of think about, this is where OData shines, and this is where like GraphQL might be like a better option?
Yeah, absolutely. So OData and GraphQL, they're the same and they're not the same at the same time. And I know this is a little confusing, but they work on a completely different foundation, right? So OData basically says, I'm going to work with the existing data sources that you have. I'm going to receive a query and convert that query into something executable on the server. GraphQL says post a body that is its own language, basically, and I'm going to convert that language into something that kind of materialize and manifest that data. The one thing I noticed between the two, GraphQL will need a lot of brain power, to kind of wrap your head around and kind of integrate. There's still, it's a new language, a new technology, but it's definitely interesting. There's massive adaptation for GraphQL. In terms of the, adaptation at the enterprise level, because OData was born first, and it's a little bit older than its sister, GraphQL. So it got a lot more adaptation across bigger application like SAP. Like, there's no big company out there that I know of that doesn't use SAP, and SAP is very, very much so OData compliant. Other than that, if you just can wrap your mind around the language that GraphQL is speaking, right, versus OData, the one thing that I take on GraphQL is that I shouldn't be posting to get. Like, I shouldn't be posting things to get data, right? GraphQL says, no, a get is a get is a get, because it's built fundamentally at the early stages of REST, so people were still really kind of strict about a get is a get, a post is a post, a put is a put. But, other than that, I think it's a great technology. I think people should experiment with both. I think, there are things that, each and every one of them. The one thing I really love about GraphQL is that it's very JavaScript friendly. Like, it's coming from the, heart of React. People who want to build React, want to do JavaScript applications, they're just structuring the request body on the fly, and they're shipping it and getting the data that they need, typeless, basically. OData cares a lot about the types. It cares too much about the types. So you can see the difference there. Let's just say GraphQL is a client-side driven kind of language versus OData, which is server-side kind of driven. It says that the server, we honor our data. You have to give me an entity data model, and this is how I'm going to serve you that data.
Yeah, that makes sense. Why don't we switch to your screen real quick, because I'd love to see an example of what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited.
And I also really like that comment you made about like caring about the text, because I think that's a very important difference to like pay attention to. Because as I'm thinking about like how we go to write the query if you don't know like the operations you can carry out on the type, right? So if I want to say a greater than or less than, or if I want to say an equals to, or if I want to do like an order by or something like that, is it a string? Is it a Boolean? Like, every operation is not the same for every type, right? So you have to be able to have some context around what these things are.
It is in JavaScript. There are no types.
There are no types. That's the thing. Yeah. It's very forgiving in terms of typing and whatnot. By the way, like most of the people that asked about this, they said, well, you write tests, you don't need types, right? But there are, if the system is big enough, Angular got rewritten completely into TypeScript because of that particular reason. Yeah. So check this out. This is what I'm showing you here. Just a simple API. It's giving you a bunch of temperature. It's all randomly generated. So every time I refresh, it's just going to give you a different set of data. That's what you get for free. That's basically basic cable when you build an ASP.NET Core application, right? So imagine this. Let's just say I don't need all that data. Like, there's a lot of data on the screen, and let's say there's a consumer, sitting on the other side, and I don't want them to see all that data. If I just do $, like this, and I just say select, right? And I say, hey, I only want the summary. I don't want everything. I just want you to give me the summary. Look what
Oh my
happened.
gosh.
It just shaped the data like this. How cool
Oh
is
my
that?
gosh. In the
Right?
Fantastic.
URL.
Yeah, in the URL. It's just it just works, right? Um,
How
it-
easy.
it's super easy, right? You know, additionally, you can do other things. Like you can basically go and say, well, I want you, let's say, I want you to filter, right, where the temperature C, let's pick up the summary is freezing, and because it's generated data, it might come back with nothing, but it's okay. We're gonna give it a couple of refreshes and it's just gonna work. So if the summary equals like this, and I want it to be freezing like that. I know none of you can relate to this temperature because we're all are in hot
Yeah.
places.
Yeah.
So
Lucky
let's
us.
give it. See it kind of queried the data based on any parameter I want, right? So I told it just give me, the summary where the summary is freezing, right? That's all I had to do. And just to kind of, show people what's happening, I said, $ filter equal summary equal and then freezing, just like that. You see what I'm saying? Um, you can also do other things. Like you can basically go and say, I want to basically find, like this is where it gets a little gonna do arithmetic operations. Like I want to go and say filter, and then I want to go and say only if the temperature in Fahrenheit, like this, right, is greater than, let's say 40, like that, right? So now if I just do this, it'll only give me Fahrenheit, temperature Fahrenheit, where it's greater than 40 on the fly,
That
all
is
in the URL.
crazy.
So I'm gonna pause you here, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick back up on that whole GraphQL versus OData thing, right? Because I've been playing with GraphQL recently, and you've already shown me that OData, in my opinion, actually has better usability than GraphQL just from this portion of the demo. Because
Right?
The browser.
well, you made a point, right? Like REST is about respecting HTTP protocols, right? And those HTTP protocols existed long before REST. They've been
Yep.
around since web pages ever existed. It wasn't until
Yep.
REST came along that we were like, hey, let's use GET, let's use push, let's use post.
Yeah.
So now what you're showing me is a URL that I don't have to have a formal web client. I don't have to
Nope.
have any IDE. I don't have to have anything
Nothing.
other than the
Nothing.
knowledge of what I want, and I can
Mhm.
just query it. To
Ooh.
try and do that with GraphQL is like it's not going to happen.
Yep.
I
Wow.
got to write a graph query, which, like you said, is its own language, and
Yep.
then I have to explicitly go against HTTP protocols and post my body to a
Yep.
server and let it tell me
Yep.
was my body correct? Was is the like I have to go through this laundry list of things, but you're just showing me a URL.
Yep.
I can query the data from a URL.
Yep.
I don't need any magic for that. Like you can put wrappers around it, but there's no magic for me, the developer,
Yep.
or
The
me, even
the
just the
easiest thing to
human.
sell. Yep.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Very straightforward, very
Yeah.
simple, easy.
Exactly.
So quick question
Yeah.
coming in from Twitch. I think this is relevant to what we're talking about right now.
Mhm.
So Fuel Snubble, I hope I said that right,
Mhm.
is asking, how do you follow relations? So say
Yeah.
you have relational data,
Yeah.
joins and that types of stuff. Like how
Yeah.
do you flow that through in OData?
Yeah, absolutely. There is another command in OData called extend. And when you do extend, you navigate through, let me kind of show you, well, this model doesn't have a lot of relation, but let me just show you the extend in OData. I just want to show you an example here. In OData, you can basically go and say, here it is. It's probably going to be either a blog post. So let's say you have a relationship between a product categories and suppliers, right? Like that, right? And you want to basically get all the categories under products connected to products, or all the suppliers under products. All you really got to do, so it's kind of building the model for you here. But the query that you're really going to execute is something, sorry, it's expand. Something as simple as give me the categories and expand from the categories and give me all the products attached to these categories. Just like that. And the result is right here. You basically go and say, here is all the categories, and under every category, here's the products that's attached to it. You're basically navigating your database in a RESTful language.
Nice. So then, and I'm also guessing too, if you couple that with the queryability, so I could query for categories and then from that subset of categories that I return, I can get that expand. Because right now it's showing like a flat query, right? And I know people are always like, okay, well, that's the demo example. What if I want to do something more complicated? So I can say, hey, give me category with ID equal to this, and then also expand it with additional products, and that should still work just the same way.
Absolutely. Let me share this notepad real quick because I want to show people something here that, you know, so here's, let's just say you have some URL, right? So HTTPS, you know, some URL in here, and then you're basically saying, you know, expand. You said expand. This is basically what Cecil was talking about. Let's say, you know, I am students and I want to see all the courses that these students have been kind of taking. So let's say courses, and then you can just go and do this outside of these courses, inside that subset of data. I only want the name of the course.
Nice.
Ooh.
So
How
now,
crazy is that? You know?
so that's even crazy because you're not even just talking about expanding, but now you're talking about filtering on the expanded property.
Yes.
So you can go even further down and filter.
Yeah. Why this is really cool, because for people that are writing, you know, when you're writing a programming language, or even if the people that write SQL, right? If you're writing SQL, you can easily go and say select all from students, right? And then you can go and say inner join, right? And then you go and say give me the courses.
Yep.
Right? C, and then you go and say where X, you know, or select name. So it will be X.name like this.
Right.
And that's it. That's pretty much the same thing. You can wrap your mind around it, right?
Yes.
So Hassan, this is like where the link shows up in the OData, right?
Yes.
Okay, so expand and select.
Yeah. So you have select,
cool.
you have expand, you know, you have filter. You can filter. You can go and say, okay, I want you to filter these courses. I want to shape my data. The thing about this technology, just so you know, it's not something new. No, it worked so well that it's been adapted by some of these bigger corporations, like World Health Organization today.
Wow.
Uses OData heavily, right? That's what I love about it. It's easy to explain. It fits in my head.
Nice. And so again, Fuel Snuggle has a whole bunch of questions. Let's take a few of them before we go on. So so you've shown us some querying examples. Is there a possibility that we could do like updates and stuff like that with OData?
It's just querying, no updates.
But then, like you said, because it's an extension of REST, I guess I could just do other REST stuff. Like
there is some magic that you can do in OData. You can send multiple API calls, something called patch. OData batch. What that basically means, you can literally go like this and say, I want you to execute, you know, this. So there will be requests like this. And for every request, you can define what this request. Actually, why am I doing this? Let me show you the article that I wrote about this. Yeah, let's just do that, because I want to give you exact syntax and I want to make sure. So OData batch.
Sure.
So that's all in one with OData batch. So look what you can do here. You can literally send a request that will fan out into multiple API calls. What that basically means, you can basically go and say, I want to do a get, I want to do a post, I want to do a put. And then the body that comes back is the response for all of these calls.
Nice.
Sometimes this is amazing, right? Because sometimes you have to make multiple calls to orchestrate, you know, a certain logic or a certain operation. OData goes and says, let me batch all of that up for you and give you the responses one by one for every request, so you don't have to keep the network busy. One request going in, one request coming back. You know what I mean?
So this is almost like a transaction of HTTP requests.
Yes. Yes.
Snazzy.
This is awesome. This is awesome.
Okay. So you see the difference? Like instead of your API consumer kind of bombarding your API with requests, you just lump them all up in one.
Which can help prevent like denial of service attacks.
Oh yeah, big time. Yes.
Yeah, I love this. This is amazing.
Yeah, it is.
We're gonna take one more question, but well, not for the whole show, but for now, because I definitely want to have you talk a little bit about the new stuff. So another question he's asking: can I limit the number of columns on the expanded columns? Well, I guess you kind of showed that a little while ago, right?
Yeah,
like
you can. Yep. You can control it from the client side, you know, by the query itself, and you can control it from the server side. Just so you know, you have, and I'm gonna share Visual Studio here real quick, and I'm sorry for jumping back and forth for everyone
Yeah,
watching,
that's
I'm,
fine.
just first world problems. Oh, I have a big monitor.
That's
Look
what
at me.
happens when you have those
Lots of
ultra wide,
monitors.
super big old
Exactly.
monitors.
Oh, oh, the suffering.
Don't apologize, sir. Don't apologize, please.
So, so if you look in here, you have full control into what you can allow and not allow in here. Like for instance, here is all the allowed functions, and I want to go and say, okay, I only want to allow the all functions to upper, all the any casting, sealing, concatenations, date, day. You can, by the way, just so you know, everything, technically everything you can do in link, you can do in REST through OData. But there's even more. Like this is not just the allowed things. You can allow logical operations. Like you basically don't want to allow anding or oring or allowing greater than. You saw how I said, give me the Fahrenheit temperature Fahrenheit that's greater than 40. You
Yeah.
can control fully all the stuff that the people can do or cannot do, on your API at the controller level. So this is happening on the controller level. I can also take this little guy and just put them all the way up here and basically control at this level. And
Nice.
you can control generally also as well at the startup level. Like if you want your entire application not to allow things, look, it's just with this one line of code. You just say add OData and enable these, and you're good to go. You
Right.
don't have to
And
run
if you didn't
anything.
want them, you could just take them out.
Yeah, you just take them out.
Right.
Let's say I never want to allow people to do order by on my API. Just like that, it's over.
Nice.
Cancel.
It's canceled. It's done.
That's amazing. So,
Yeah, that is
so if
nice.
you've not been sold on OData and how easy it is and how useful it is for building REST applications, like hopefully I think Hassan has done an amazing job showing us what this kind of looks like.
Yeah.
Why don't we talk about some of the new stuff? Like, so this is OData 8 points current.
12, yes.
OData 12?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. See?
8 or 12.
8 point.
Yes.
Okay, 8 or
Yep.
12, right? So,
Yes.
and I know you're working on some new stuff. I'd love to hear about well, I don't know.
Okay. So
Why are we working on new stuff? And
Yeah,
what's it? Like,
let's talk
what are
about
we doing?
it.
Right, absolutely. So about a year ago, just about a year ago, I made a proposal. Basically, I went and I sat down with the Michael Pezo, Sam Shu, and the identity team, the folks that are maintaining OData inside of Microsoft. And I basically said to them, "Hey, I want to rewrite the entire project from scratch." And it was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Hey, look, technology is evolving and changing, and I don't want OData to be exclusive to REST." I want OData to work with gRPC. I want it to work with a console application. I want it to be protocol agnostic. Okay.
Wow.
So if you want to kind of even create your own thing, as long as you're sending that OData query, over the wire, something sitting down there will be able to translate it, whether it's RESTful or not. Right. So instead of being the best way to REST, it's just the best way, and you stop right there. Right.
Yeah.
The other requirement that I wanted to have there, in addition to that, I want it to be a marketplace. I don't want it to be exclusive to select, filter, any arithmetic operations or any of that. I want people to be able to publish, packages or libraries which they can pull in, and you can define a new $sign capability. Yes, I want people to go and say, I want to implement a capability that says fuzzy search or sounds like. And you're basically modifying the protocol. You're turning it into a marketplace so people can actually create their own operations, without having to wait for the core team to develop these components for them, right? So that's the second requirement, right? I wanted to make sure that also the library is built in according to the standardization. I wrote a little book called the Engineering Standard. It basically helps me bring engineering teams, new and seasoned people, up to speed with test-driven development, object-oriented programming, dependency, all these things that you see they're great, but they're individual. I collected all of them together into one book, and I said, here's the framework where you can build enterprise level systems, right? OData is my 48th enterprise project to build, so maybe I know something, right?
Yeah. Just a little bit.
just a little, right? So since then, I decided that every single programming session for this library is going to be live streamed and documented, because more important than the products that we build, the experience, like all of us sitting right here talking to each other, right? This is an experience. This is more valuable to me than any technology out there, because the technology will eventually be legacy. But this this can generate more energy and more products and more software forever. And this is just an advice, like, for engineering leads, people are always over the product. That's really, really important from that perspective. So that's basically OData Neo, a reshape and reconceptualization of the product itself to make it more relevant, up to speed,
Innovative.
innovative.
I'm liking that. I love what you said about like this is the experience. I think like that's one thing that I love about like learning and meeting new people like you is just like it's a fun experience that we all can share together.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes like like the code will eventually become
It'll be
outdated.
legacy.
So, but this right here is what's always like worth it.
Yeah.
So,
The
yeah.
community, the
Yeah,
people,
the people, the
Yes.
people.
Yeah. Yeah. The product is just, like the demo is the boring part about any software development process. Like a demo
Okay.
on a like the demo on the product is okay, the customer is happy, but what did we actually learn about each other, and what kind of relationships did we establish with each other that can help us build 50 million other products in the future? That's
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
real
And
investment
keep
right
it
there.
fun too,
And keep it
right?
fun. Gotta
Yeah.
Right?
joke, gotta watch some YouTube videos, and gotta have fun,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what this is all about. Is having fun.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. I love it.
So you brought up a point that I wanna pick on, right? So you said that you wanted to be like a marketplace, right? So like let's bring it closer to the metal, like a framework like the MEF framework, right? Like which tried to build that same marketplace feel at the software component bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what it sounds like when I hear you say that is, hey Rodney, I'm going to give you this thing, and if you don't like it, it is extensible enough, right? So we talk about things like open close principle, right?
Yep.
Like it's open to extension, right? So
Yep.
like this thing you're giving me, I can go hack at it, do
Yep.
whatever I want, throw the kitchen sink at it.
Yep.
Your stuff is still going to work. Mine may not because I broke my stuff, but like I have the option to go implement whatever I want on top of your foundation and extend it to my needs. And I don't
Yes.
think that we as a development community inside the Microsoft space appreciate that concept enough, because to me that sounds like, hey Rodney, I'm going to build a tool that you can literally just go, you take my tool and build your own tool on top of and bring more value to more people.
Yes.
So now the reach is just far beyond, hey, I built this thing. It's, hey, I built this thing, and then Rodney built this thing on top of it, and then Cecil built this thing on top of what Rodney built, and now we're 4 generations deep.
Yep.
But we're still adhering to the core principle, which is the OData aspect of it. So I really do appreciate that you are looking at it from that perspective.
Yep.
And then the fact that you are live streaming it, like as somebody that helps maintain an open source library, like has done a little bit of open source work, live stream, like that's a very, very valuable artifact for the project, because 3 years, 4 years from now, somebody may be like, hey, how do I do this thing? And the video is there.
It's there.
And like, oh, this is how we built it. This was the original design decision. So now it's not a random, guy on GitHub saying, oh, why did you make this horrible design decision? It's like, oh, go look at the videos. That's why we did this. And if you feel like you can do better and you want to help, all the artifacts are there. Go figure it out, buddy. Like, get out of my face and go do this. I really, really appreciate everything that you're doing in that vein, because that's there's a lot there, and I don't think that people appreciate what you're giving them with that.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Kudos.
I just got chills. Amazing.
He's just the energy. I told you I like this guy. I told you.
I was feeling emotional. I was like, wow, this is beautiful.
So it's funny, right? Like that's Alan Ritchie saying that. Like Alan wrote a library that I've used from the beginning of my Xamarin developer career, right? Like, and when I got a chance to meet him, it was the most amazing thing. And it said the same thing. Like, I do get excited about the technology. You wanna know why? Because I am tasked with, hey, Rodney, tell me what are the correct technologies that we need to use to implement this new piece of software. And I got to be able to stand on it and say, hey, we should use this because it has a good track record, or we should use that. But when I get to hear new things that I can add to to those discussions and be like, hey, well, I heard this thing and this guy, he's really reputable. Like, I can bring these things to my clients, and it's a great feeling. So it's always good to know that the technology behind you is rock solid, and the people behind that technology are there to support you. So yes.
Beautiful.
Rodney, just to kind of to just kind of add to top of that, one of the things like I'm hoping to finish during summer is that in Visual Studio, I'm planning to kind of build an extension where you can click on the line of code and it will take you to the portion in the YouTube video where that line of code was built, so you can see the people that built it and how they built it. I'm capturing the human experience. I want to put faces on the code. I want people to know that there were people sitting down writing that code. I want you to see it. You know what I mean? So
groundbreaking.
What do you guys think? Do you guys think it's a good idea?
I think that's a good idea. I think
that's fun and interactive.
Yeah. If you can force GitHub Actions to force a YouTube link as part of your build pipeline, yes, do it.
Yeah,
force people to provide video evidence of them creating the thing. I'm there for it. I'm down.
It's much, Rodney, it's so much like you see the code, but I want to put a face on that code. I want to tell people that this came from people that were thinking about it.
Yes.
How often do you get that experience when you look at code? The only time you see people, you look at the blame, right? Right, Elad? You look at the blame and they be like, okay, whose name is it? They show you a video. Oh man, that's great.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic approach, and I'm interested to see how it works out, because that may be a new thing that the .NET open source community may rally behind, right? Like,
right?
Yeah.
Who knows?
This is social media meets engineering. Everyone likes to stream.
Yeah.
There's a lot of streaming, right? Okay, why don't I take this streaming and bake it into the coding experience so you can see the exact moment that code was written? Yes.
Yeah, I love that idea. That sounds amazing.
That's fun.
Ron, you got everybody hyped, man. Like,
that's what he does. That's what he does.
I love it.
It's like 9 in the morning. I feel like I could run a mile or two.
And I'm only on 1 cup of coffee. That's the funny part, right? Like,
that is amazing.
But you know what? There's some things you just don't need the coffee for. Some things just like flip the switch, right?
Who needs coffee when you have Rodney? He'll just hype you up.
And OData.
OData. That's the thing, right? Because like I've used OData on projects, right? Like one of the first Xamarin projects I worked on used OData protocols behind the scenes, right? So like I know what OData can provide. I know what the problem that it solves. And I don't see enough people in the .NET space really using it, right? Like case in point, the number one thing that I hear when they say, oh, well, the API size is large, the values that are coming down it's too much. The first thing I hear is, oh, gzip it. And I'm like, no, don't gzip it. Put OData in and get just the values you want, and then tell everybody to use that, or write your own query, right? I've even gotten to the point where you say, like Cecil said at the onset of the show, that SQL people don't like OData. Well, I can tell you, I used to sit with a DBA and optimize my OData queries. So we would take the SQL output from the OData query. He would rewrite the SQL to what would be optimal SQL. And then I go rewrite the OData query so that it matched what it was that he was seeing, right? So that way we were getting this round trip of optimization. So, like all of the naysayers that'll give you all like 10,000 reasons why you shouldn't use it, it's 10,000 reasons of nonsense. You're just coming up with reasons why you shouldn't conform to a perfectly good standard to get data out of your API service.
Yes, absolutely.
It could be so simple.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to just add this one more thing, just so everyone understand. One of the biggest reasons OData, is not, very, very well adapted, especially with new applications and new generations of engineers, is the advocacy, right? And, I was lucky enough like 4 or 5 years ago to reach out to Cecil and tell him, hey, brother, I want to talk about OData. And he said, you know what? We don't have anyone to talk about OData. Nobody talks about OData. And this is where it all started.
Wow.
Tens of articles, rewrites, videos, it went crazy from there. Jeremy Lekness, and then, later on, many people kind of started to evolve this. So, Cecil, thank you so much for just giving me that 10-minute on the .NET show to show people what the heck, we're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like what Rodney said too. Like, there's so many amazing tooling opportunities and features and things that we have, but we just don't talk
Mm.
about them. And there's really no good reason why we don't, right? I feel very much the same way when it comes to like reactive extensions. You know what I mean? Like another Microsoft thing that I think is absolutely amazing. We don't talk about it. Like, when's the last time you went on the .NET channel and saw anyone say reactive? Never
Very,
mind
very
reactive
rare.
extensions, right?
It
Like,
was
when's the
probably
last
this
time
guy
you saw
right here. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's probably
Yeah.
Rodney was the last person to do it, right? Like, it's like there's so many things that we could do as a community with the things that we already have.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But we don't. You know, it starts with education, right? Like, you have to educate people about the thing. And I'm going to go on a soapbox for a second. I apologize, folks.
No, I'm ready for
this
it.
this is when it.
Let me fix my
This is
headset.
when
Go
for
for
me
it.
you can tell the difference between like a product and a project, right? So if you look at JavaScript folks, like JavaScript folks create projects and people like rally around the project, and there's a community around the project. When you create a product for money, then it's just like, okay, the product has shipped, I'm going to move on to the next product. You see what I'm saying? So it's not the same mindset. It's like, okay, it's done, it works, whatever, and I move on to the next thing that's going to get me paid, right? But now the thing that you already built that, I don't know, maybe didn't make you millions of dollars or tons of money, but it's an amazing resource. And then you know what happens with us as .NET people is that other people look over the wall and be like, oh, that's a cool thing. I'm going to implement it for my stuff as a project. And then now they have a whole community around it. Again, I'm going to use reactive extensions as an example, right?
Yep.
I think reactive extensions blew up when the JavaScript folks took it.
Yeah.
We might have had it for like 5 or 6 years before that. We didn't do nothing with it, right? The JavaScript folks took it and they make RxJS, and that became a whole thing. And then it went into RxJava, and then now it's like in all these Android apps. That became a thing. And then now .NET people are like, oh wow, like why don't we have that? I'm like, oh, y'all had it first.
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what are we talking about right now?
The grass is greener.
Same thing. Saying that we're talking about like this OData / GraphQL thing, right? Like, oh hey, I need a way to like send that data to the client without sending all these properties. I'm like, oh, we did that 10 years ago. Like, what are you talking about?
Wow.
You know what I mean? But if we don't talk about these things, right? And if we don't, you know, if we as a community don't take a little bit back from Microsoft and kind of like flourish the projects ourselves, then they just, again, it's a product, right? And like, hey, did what it was supposed to do, I'm going to move on. But like, who's going to be the people or the community to invest in the education, right? Like, we have to invest in our own education,
right?
Yep.
Because
it's not going to take off. It's not going to take off. Like, that's the thing. I always tell people this. You know, Microsoft creates great stuff, and then the marketing of it is just dead. And also there's also one more thing on top of that, the taste. We need to add taste into what we build. We need to add culture, right? We need to bring it to the street, right? I don't want the enterprise calculator. I want a cool name. I want some, you know what I mean? I want rock and roll into what I'm building, right?
Yes.
To romanticize it. I feel like it needs to be romanticized.
It really does. It really does. I remember Windows 98 used to play music for you when you would listen to Windows 98 installation. You don't have that stuff anymore. Everything is just so corporate-y.
Yes, that's literally how I'm feeling. It's like we need to add some type of like romantic flair to make this like whole experience feel meaningful.
Yes, we really do. We really do.
We do. So Hassan, tell us what is the status today of Neo? Like, is it a thing that we could look at and touch and play with? Is there a repo that we could interact with? Like, how do we get involved in like what's happening in that space?
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell the community, you know, if there is no repo, then it doesn't exist, and it's just you know, words. You know, words are a dozen for a dime, right? Anybody can come up with an idea out there. Can you actually put in the heart and soul and, you know, blood and sweat into it and actually make it happen? So let me share my screen here real quick, and I'm gonna go to OData Neo. Under the .NET Foundation, you know, Sam Shu kind of helped me out build a repository. You know, it's starting to get a lot of attention. People are kind of looking into it, and there is a full detail about, you know, what this library is for. We need modularity. I need to kind of have my OData Neo or OData Next kind of integrate with ASP.NET, gRPC, and also SOAP. I want to bring everything. I want to make it protocol agnostic. I want to make sure that people can plug and play, their own extensions, their own kind of capabilities into the library and publish it as a marketplace. But more importantly, what's more important than all of this is that the transcendence part. This is the most important part about OData that we need to have today, which is basically, let's say you have microservices architecture, and this microservice architecture, we have a little problem. I want my OData query to transcend from my gatekeeper onto another service. So it needs to come in as raw string, gets turned into link query, and then goes out and fan out into multiple services that will serve partial components of that query. So let's say, for instance, you're basically saying extend students, extend teachers, or expand students, expand teachers. I want that expand command to go to its own microservice, and the microservice will handle that and then hand me back the result. And then we aggregate all of this back and then shoot it back to the client. The client is none the wiser. They don't know, whether this came from one single API or, 50 different APIs. It doesn't matter. So this transcendence and conversion, between a string to a query and back into a string, into the rest of your distributed system is crucial to keep OData going.
Nice.
So this is the repository, but also I have a tiny demo for you here, which is
We
let
love
me kind of
demos.
yeah, let's go real quick to the demo. This is how we make it truly agnostic, and I just want to be considerate, if everyone's time, but I will do this real quick. So let's just you have a class student in here, and the class student has a GUID, or an int for an ID like this, and then let's say I have also maybe a name like this. Right? So just a simple class. And I'm just going to go ahead and just write a quick test in here and say public void should work great. Just like that. And then let's just kind of create a quick list. So here's all my students, and here's a list of students like that. And here's the student, and let's just create a bunch of these, right? So new student, and I need a couple of these in here. Let's just do that. And I'm just gonna add a bunch of IDs, right? So here's one, and then I know I want a name, so here's Cecil. And here's two.
That's funny.
Did I write your name right, Elon? I don't.
It's ELAHN.
HN, got it. Sorry. There it is. And then of course the one and only, Rodney. Okay, so we have that list in here, and then what I can do now is that I can pull in OData Neo. This is a live demo for you. So and then I'm just gonna go ahead and say var filtered students. Okay, and then I'm gonna just initialize my OData Neo project in here. So I'm just gonna go and say students like this. Watch this. Now it's an extension, so I can literally say apply OData query async in here. Okay, let me pull in the right references in here. I need to make this async because it's asynchronous. We're gonna also make it non-asynchronous at some point in time.
Don't do that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm totally cool with it. No problem there, right?
Lock all the threads. Yeah.
Right there. And then, let's see here. I want to kind of just pull in, see where the extension is. Yeah, we have this extension right here. So I just need OData Neo extension like this. And I'm just going to add it in here. I have it in here. Great. Let's see. Just bear with me.
Take it down.
Apply OData Neo extension. Let's see here. Apply OData query on the students. Oh, I made this IQueryable. That's right. So this here is as queryable, like this. So assume that this is just the concepts that's coming to you from the database, and it doesn't have any. It doesn't actually materialize any data yet, right? So now I can go up in here and say apply OData query async, and I'm passing my OData query to it. This is what's coming from the outside world, right? And then at the very end here, I'm just gonna say, I don't know, assert true filtered students is not null or something like that. And we're gonna put a breakpoint and kind of show the world, what this really looks like. So let's just take a look here at what I did. I basically said there is no API, there's nothing. I'm just applying the query as a raw string coming from the outside world, and it's being applied to this IQueryable that's coming in here. What I want is that I just want the name. I don't care about anything else. Let's run this and see what it looks like. Moment of truth. Blue screen of death in front of 50,000 people. That never
Oh my
happened, right?
gosh. A whole
Let's see what happens.
stadium.
It does happen.
Yeah, that's right. Here we go.
I love how Visual Studio always takes long when people are watching.
Oh
Right?
yeah. Oh yeah. So I'm gonna do a quick watch. I don't know if you can see the window that just popped up. I know
No.
sometimes.
Yeah, we can't. We can only see the main VS Visual
Okay,
Studio window.
I'll do the real ad watch then. So this one right here. So you see this filter student's probably really small. I'm very sorry about that. But if you look, it just picked up the name. Look, Cecil, Elon, Rodney.
Yep.
Wow.
I applied the query without even having to write 4 lines of code. It's just your existing iQuery and iQueryable, and you're just applying OData query to it, and that's it.
That's so easy.
Though there's a lot of magic,
Oh yeah.
right? So like let's talk about that magic. So
Yeah.
basically what you're doing is you're taking people who are not familiar, IEnumerable versus iQueryable. Like you have an IEnumerable, which is just a pull-based set, and iQueryable is actually a enumeration that hasn't been expanded yet, right? We haven't actually said .toList or whatever, right? So it's basically just a query in memory. So what it looks like you're doing is you're hooking into the iQueryable concept, and you're basically saying, well, my query is a link query just like any other query. Apply whatever OData query I write as a link query on top of the iQueryable.
Exactly.
That's the magic behind that method, and that is fantastic.
Yes, and it
because
doesn't.
now you can take anything.
Yes, it doesn't matter. You can get that. You can get that input from an API, from a console application input. You can get it from a gRPC. You can get it from anywhere.
Doesn't matter.
It's completely protocol agnostic.
Right, because it adheres to the iQueryable interface.
Exactly.
Wow.
Magic.
We should have a beta release of this, really, really soon. I was hoping like by now we would have it, but of course, schedules and a couple of things come up, but hopefully I can release a beta release really, really soon for people just to try it out. And I'm, OData Neo is coming from talking to a lot of customers, big and small corporations, that come in and say, hey, we want to do this one thing. And then they end up, kind of hacking around or doing a, kind of just really a kind of a temporary solution that's not really solid. I want to give people solid things that they can take, modify, customize, open source. They can see how it was built. I want it all out there.
I love it.
Yeah, this is amazing, man. So you showed us the repo, right? We saw a little bit of a code sample. Actually, I did have one question, and this was related to on the repo. You showed us that diagram where you talked about how you wanted to like break up the query and have it sent to different microservices.
Yes.
So now I'm kind of thinking, and to be able to do that in an agnostic way, are you thinking each of those applications are going to be like OData enabled via like a package, or are you thinking that there's going to be some type of like sidecar pattern like people use in like the microservice world? Like there's going to be like another thing sitting next to it that's funneling it, or is it going to be like embedded in the application?
Embedded in your API, it takes in that query. It doesn't know whether it's part of a bigger query or not. It just says, hey, give me this filter this with this one particular restriction. It's a hard problem to solve, but I have a huge community. Like, we have 500 people in the standard community that want to kind of jump in, learn, new, seasoned people from all over the world. Like, building this library, we have people from England, Australia, Germany, Uzbekistan, people here in the US. The code is running circles around the planet to be written. And that's the beauty about the community, the beauty about engaging people with you and building software.
Conversations.
Yeah.
Conversations build interest. That's what I'm
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So are you having all these conversations on GitHub, or are they, do you have like a Discord channel too, or like how are you coordinating like all that communication?
Yeah, so we have a Discord server, that's one, but we also have a, if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see all of these live. If you go to the playlist, let me just show you this. This is the fun part about all of this.
And then why don't you drop us the link for that too, and I could
Yeah.
put that up on the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me drop the link for the wow, what are all these guys? I'll drop it in the private chat. Okay,
Yeah,
so here it
in the
is.
private chat.
So look at this from the very beginning, like this very beginning. That's just me proposing the project, just talking to the OData folks. We talked to the standard compliance folks. We had deep dive into where OData is, and then 82 sessions later, these are 1 and 2 hour sessions. 82 sessions later, you have a fully formed project with all the discussions, people coming from all over the place, kind of discussing, talking about how we build the feature. I'll be honest with you, and this is probably, I'm probably shooting myself in the foot here, but I care a lot more about this engagement, than just building another app. I already done this 50 million times.
Yeah.
But just sitting down and talking to people about things and
Yes.
connecting with them, that's more important than anything. When all software becomes legacy and AI writes everything for us, you'll realize that this is more valuable, and
Yes.
this is something that AI can never, ever, ever, ever generate. So,
The connection.
the connection. Exactly. You can't make a connection with a toaster unless it's a Bluetooth
Right.
connection.
Right. Human connection. I love it.
Yes. And our Discord server, if you go back to the OData Neo, there is a Discord link in here called the Standard Community. This is the community like where the sun never sets. Like they're all over the world. They're everywhere. Anytime
That's
someone just
beautiful.
joins in, hops in, they ask questions. There are new people, people seasoned. We had a guy in one of our streams telling us, "Hey, I actually worked with punch cards." Punch cards, like like they didn't even write code. They had to punch cards and submitted it to a nice lady in the lab, and you had to be nice to her. And then you come back 2 days later and tells you, "Oh, your card, you spilled some tea on your card. Your program doesn't work anymore." You had to do it again. So we have that range, that amazing range for people from everywhere.
Yeah, this is
Nice.
amazing, man.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I just learned about it today, and I'm like super excited about it.
It's really cool. It's really, really cool.
So Alon, that means that we're gonna be looking forward to that .NET book study episode when you do some OData.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
I have to put it
Call
on
me
here.
out. Call me out.
You
Call me
brought it up.
out.
I gotta put it on here now. You gotta,
Put me on the spotlight,
I'm
okay?
I'm gonna be looking forward to it. So Hassan, I'd say, like, I guess whenever the package is out, whenever the NuGet is ready for us to start.
You're the first person I talked to.
Yeah, definitely let us know. We'd love to kind of like follow this journey, right, and see like what are some of the things that are you could enable for us as developers with like OData Neo, and I guess I'd also want to know, like, what does that mean for the existing OData ecosystem, right? Because is there going to be like is it backward compatible? Is there going to be like a shim in the middle to like kind of make things work? Like, how do I go from like what exists today to what we're going to do in the future, right? I think that's going to be an interesting conversation to see.
Right. If OData Neo comes into fruition the way we expect it to, slowly but surely we would have to consider sunsetting the existing piece. Where's Will? What happened? Did I make him?
I think
I'm done.
He just dropped Stefan.
It's like, I don't want to talk about it. It's over.
I'm out of here.
Right. How rude. He asked the question and he just leaves
It's
the
been
room.
real.
Cecil, what happened?
You're back.
I have no idea what happened. I just looked up and like my browser shut down. I'm just like,
asked the question, dropped the mic, boom.
I'm gonna kind of just ask the question. Like, I kind of want to know what he's gonna say.
You're welcome.
What's that gonna do to the existing OData? Bye.
Oh my gosh. This is what happens on live show, folks. Things happen sometimes. You gotta keep it going.
By the way, just so you know, I was on the Entity Framework stand-up, kind of session, and we were like doing a GraphQL versus OData kind of comparison and all that. And I was telling them about OData Neo, and I said the third and most important part, and I closed the browser, and I just went out. I just was like, the exact same thing happened with me.
The
Oh
most
my
important part.
The most important part, I was out.
Boom.
And the jokes just started coming in.
You're just
You're like, "Oh, okay, boomer, you don't know how to use a browser. Just
canceled.
Oh my goodness.
delete your account. Delete your account."
Oh my
For,
goodness.
for what it's worth, clicking buttons is hard. It's the hardest part of what we do. Finding the right button to click is like, wait a minute.
Oh my gosh.
So listen, just
Because
to
there's
come
so
back,
many buttons too.
yes,
Yeah,
let's have all of
right?
that. I
So
mean,
That is just so many.
so
Anyway,
come back to that question. If
Mhm.
OData Neo works the way we expect, it basically carries the core concepts and ideas in the existing OData. So we would start talking about sunsetting OData as it stands today, and kind of just let OData Neo become, the premier, the way you
next
integrate your systems
way to do it.
moving onwards.
nice.
It's gonna take a lot of hard work, a lot of hard work, but we're here for it. We're having fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested because when you said, you're removing like that dependency on HTTP, and now you'll be able to use gRPC, or
Yeah.
I could even imagine it going over message queues. That could be
Oh
an
yeah.
interesting thing to see.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
Or
Oh
even
yeah.
like wrapping businesses. So I could see it being like, as for someone that works at Stripe, I could even see it as like, I'm going to OData into my Stripe account
Yep.
and get like customer information and product information without necessarily speaking, like going through the API or whatever the case is, right? Like I'd love to see like some of these types of things like materialize from like some of the work that you're doing right now.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Hassan, this has been amazing, man. I think we all had a good time. Hopefully everyone that's watching
Amazing
had a good
time.
time too.
Hopefully.
If people want to reach out to you directly, I'm guessing you're on the Twitters and the Mastodons and the LinkedIns
I am
and like
everywhere
all the
except
places.
TikTok. Should I join TikTok, Cecil?
Do
No.
it.
No,
I don't
listen,
know how to
Addicting.
dance.
Do
you know,
it.
Like,
listen,
I can
listen.
do just the finger dance. That's as far as I can go. I'm gonna need.
My only exposure to TikTok is the videos that my mother sends me.
It's addicting. It's addicting.
I got better things to do with my time. I got code to write.
All I'm gonna say is I had to take it off my phone because
Okay.
like what Alon said, like it is.
It's
It's
literally
very
addicting.
I had to take it off
right?
my
It's
phone.
addicting.
Yeah.
I had to.
I don't
It's
know.
addicting.
Okay. Yeah, I'm everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, you names it, I've done it. Just so just reach out. If you type Hassan Habib, I think I beat up the guy that play poker, and the guy that is a TV reporter somewhere in Dubai.
Oh, wow.
So
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I beat these guys.
Oh, wow.
I come first results. I'll be like, sit on the side, sit on the side.
I love
There
it,
can
man.
be only one.
I love it.
Nerds
I love it.
win. Nerds
Yeah,
win.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh, cool. All right, man, Hassan. Well, again, thank you so much.
Thank you so
Really
much.
appreciate you.
I
And
appreciate
thank all
you
of you
too.
for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we'll have more videos talking about like some of the cool things we do in the .NET community. With that being said, thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.